Your job was to make the sound.
Yes. Well, yes, I did make a sound, in actual fact, because, well, right from the very start, their sound wasn't very good because their equipment wasn't terribly good. But what I wanted to do, there was something different about this group, guitar group, than I'd seen before with any other guitar groups. Just something different. And what I wanted to do, therefore, was there was such a personality about them that I recognised straight away. Funny enough, I don't think George Martin did initially, but I did. This personality came through to me strongly. So what I wanted to do was to try to capture a sound whereby they were actually performing for you in your room when you listened. And the sound, like for instance, if you went to a theatre at any time to see a band or whatever, you would get a mixture of the direct sound from the stage and also from the acoustics of the theatre that you were in. This is what I wanted to try and get, because this would add to the live, you know, and I hoped the personality of this band. So what I did, I would start them off by letting them play what levels they were comfortable at. First of all, setting them all up so that they were close together and they were happy with, they could hear one another, you know, and play off one another. I knew how important this was because I was a jazz musician and had my own quintet myself, and I knew how important it was for us to be close together. So this I wanted to get with the boys. So I set them up to start with as though they were performing on stage. Then I said, set your own levels when on the run through that you're happy with. So this they did, and they were happy with it. And then what I would do then, I wanted to get the ambience of the room of number 2 studio as well. And that came about by me positioning the microphones sometimes as much as 20 or 30 feet away from an amplifier in order to get this. And that was strictly against the EMI rules. The company policy was that set down by the 2 major senior sound engineers. And when I first became a sound engineer, I was told by the management, you must adhere to the rules that they've laid down, which was an awful lot of screens and close microphoning, positioning, and that sort of thing. But then, as I said to you now, once I got developed and recognised as a sound engineer, I thought, well, to hell with the rules, I'm going to do it my way, which is exactly what I did. And fortunately, people have noticed that sound, that live sound, and that's how I got it, by positioning the microphones in a certain way so that I got a mixture of direct and off the walls, the ambience. And that, I think, did, well, I think so, contribute to, you know, the personality that I was after. And that's how I got the sound.
And it was a personality particular to them.
Yes. Oh, yes. The only time I ever did it was with them. I did several other groups from Liverpool as well, but I didn't make them up in the same way. These guys, to me, were special right from the very time I met them, and their personality hit me, you know. Took George a little time to get used to it, because George Martin, anyway, he wasn't used to that kind of rock group, call it that. Anyway, as you may know, the type of records that he made. I'm very good at it, of course, at that, but he wasn't that interested in guitar groups, you know, playing that. I can understand his lack of enthusiasm to begin with, as I've said, because they didn't show anything at the audition. But it, of course, then wasn't long before it, particularly, I mean, Love Me Do was not a great hit. We had a bit of a struggle. George didn't actually come to the first recording of Love Me Do. His assistant came, and Ron Richards, and myself. So we were left to Love Me Do, the first record. It wasn't terribly successful, not because of our fault, but because it just wasn't happening, you know, and particularly Ron thought, and later George, because of Pete Best, his drumming, which I never agreed to, actually. It wasn't what Pete was playing, it was, or rather, it wasn't because of his drumming, it was because of what he was playing in the head arrangement, which I thought was all wrong. But, you know, George and Ron got together later. Well, we had to abandon that first session, and they decided that Pete had got to go, which of course he did. And mind you, I think the other three lads, in any case, they had their eye on Ringo by that time. He was playing in another Liverpudlian group. And funny enough, I think the Hurricanes, I think it was. And so, you know, but I did think, in actual fact, that it was Brian Epstein, that actually it was his doing that got Pete Best out. But I was wrong. It was because of, Ron and George thinking that Pete Best wasn't good enough for the group, so he had to go. But I still say it wasn't. It wasn't that. It wasn't a decent arrangement. He was a decent enough drummer. It wasn't that at all. This is solely my opinion, that you know, it was mainly down to what he was playing and not how he was playing.
Tell me what it was like to hear Please Please Me when you recorded it. I mean, hearing it today, it's as live as it ever, I mean, it's a thrilling record. Tell me anything you remember about Please Please Me.
Well, I mean, for the first time I heard it, here was the kind of stuff I was hoping to get from this group. The personality of the song itself came across to what I was feeling, you know, and especially after the trouble we'd had with Love Me Do anyway. I mean, it was just it's difficult to describe, really, except that, this has got to be it. This is the song, you know, that it should make it. Because still we had no idea that it was going to be a big hit, you know, obviously. But as soon as I finished it, funny enough, because I don't know if I should tell you this, but the Decca had turned them down. All the other major companies had turned them down. And as soon as we finished Please Please Me, there was, I won't name him, but it was somebody at EMI, a cutter at EMI, and I said to him, I've got an idea, actually, because I thought this has got to be a big hit. I really did think that. Let's cut a lacquer, an acetate, and we'll send it to Decca with a with a different name, and see what happens, you know. So we did this, and do you know what? They turned that down too. And not many people know this, but this is what happened. We did it purely as a joke, you know, but just to test it out. Yes, we just sent it to Decca. I don't know who heard it, who didn't hear it, but we got the answer back that no.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Meant to be.
But that was just nobody knew this. I'm only telling you that because it was just as a joke. Well, not so much as a joke, really, to test, you know, to see what we'd got. This is before it became a hit. I must say that, obviously. We'd only just finished the mix, and I suddenly got this idea, this has got to be great.
Norman, tell me, what was it like when the Beatles came into the studio after you had gotten a mix-up of what you had just recorded? Was there ever excitement over a particular song?
Well, it was such a good feeling developed between us all that we were all equally as enthusiastic on the completion of a song particularly, of course, after Please Please Me hit number one. From then on, I mean, as I've said, we were just like a family. We all got the same excitement visually from the boys. I'm not too sure, I can't remember George getting that excited, but then again, he, you know, I suppose he couldn't show it like the rest of us did anyway. That yeah, we were very excited about it, always. After each song, you know, I mean, it was just that enthusiasm. Wow, you know, here comes another one. That kind of feeling. Difficult to describe, except, you know, how a family would feel against its own siblings or whatever, you know, if they may get success. It's that kind of feeling, because as I've said so many times, we were a family, no doubt about it. George Martin reckons he was the fifth Beatle, and I was the sixth, but he's got it the wrong way around. I was the fifth, and he was the sixth.
And why do you feel that way?
Because, as I said, I got on so well with the boys, and I felt that my input to the Beatles' success was just as important as anybody else's, and that's why I feel that way.
Yeah. I've read this story. There was a song that you played for Paul and John around the Help time. They were looking to finish the album, I think, and they liked the song a lot. Do I have it right?
Yes, you do.
Can you tell me the story?
It's a sad story, actually. Yes, we were coming towards the end of the session, and they needed one more song to complete the album, in actual fact. There was just the three of us in the control room, Dick James, the publisher, George Martin and myself. I did have the mics open down in the studio, so I could hear what they were saying. And they were going through, what should we do next? And they were going through, I forget the guy's name now, a big American song, rock writer, American one, can't think of his name now, but they were going through his songs and others, but they couldn't decide on one. I could hear all this going over, and it so happened, just like a Hollywood movie, in my inside pocket, I happened to have a song that I had just written with John Lennon in mind. I'd finished it the day before, actually, and I'd put it in my inside pocket. And I suddenly thought, my God, I wonder, should I? So anyway, there came a bit of a silence in the control room, and then I said to George Martin, I said, well, it so happens, I don't know whether you're going to believe this or not, but I do happen to have a song in my inside pocket that I think I've written for John Lennon. So George Martin said to me, tell him on the talkback. So, but I was like this, you know. And so I said, no, I can't do it. You do it. So anyway, he picks up the microphone, and I said, ask for Paul to come up. So he just went, Paul, can you come up? Norm's written a song. And I heard him say, ever normal? I heard all that business, you know. So anyway, Paul came up, and he said, you've written this song? I said, yeah, I have. He said, well, come down and sing it to us, you know. I said, no, I'm too nervous. I'll tell you what, I'll take you across into number 3 studio, and I'll sit at the piano and play it to you. So this is what I did. Went across there, played it to him, and at the end of it, he said, that's great, Norm, that's great. He said, that sounds as though John could do that. So I said, well, no offence, Paul. I said, but that's who I've written it for. So he said, oh, right, let's get John up. So anyway, we did. We got John up. So now there's the three of us in number 3, and I played it to get to John. And at the end of it, John said, great, Norm, I can do that. I said, well, it is for you, John. So he said, oh, wonderful, right, OK, we'll do it. So we're back into the control room we go, and they said, no, it's great, said to George Martin, Dick James, it's great, we're going to do it. And they said to me, can you do some sort of a little demo? It was a Friday evening, over the weekend, because we had another session booked for the following Monday. So I thought, well, this I'm not going to miss. Somehow I will do a demo, you know. Well, at home, we hadn't got very much in the way of money, and therefore all I had was a little old out-of-tune piano, not really good. So I thought, well, got to do it. So I just made it on an ordinary cassette, this demo, wrote them out the top line and chords, etc., and lyric, and looking forward to the Monday. But when Dick James heard that they were going to do it, after John and Paul had gone down back into the studio to pack up, Dick turned to me and he said, "Congratulations, Norm, that's great." He said, "But I tell you what, I'll offer you £15,000 for it now to buy it outright." Well, of course, I nearly collapsed because, I mean, we got nothing in the bank. So I said, "Oh." But then, looking, Dick was like where you are, and back there was George Martin behind. And so I could see, and George was sitting there going, shaking his head like that. So I thought, oh, God, wonder why. Well, I tell you what, Dick, I said, wait till Monday. I'll give you the answer on Monday, because we've got another session on Monday. So he said, oh, yeah, OK, we'll do that. Anyway, come Monday, and I'm sat, obviously, I got there about an hour early waiting for this session to start, thinking they're going to do my song. And they came in, one after the other, they all arrived together. And as they passed me to go down into the studio, "Hi, Norm. Hello, Norm. Oh, Norm." And they had a tone about their voices. I thought, uh-oh, they're not very happy. It doesn't sound very good. Anyway, they went down there, and I did have a microphone open. And then it was Paul that said, "Norm, can you hear me?" So, "Yes, I can hear you, yeah. Can you come down?" So I said, "Yeah, OK." So down I went into the studio. They said, "Look, Norm, don't want you to be upset about it." He said, "But do you realise that on this album, we only realised it over the weekend, that Ringo hadn't got a song?" So I said, and I went through in my mind, "Oh, that's right, yeah, no, he hasn't." So they said, "You know, we know what the fans are, that they like Ringo to have a song." I said, "Yeah, that's true." So Paul said, "Well, John has written him a song over the weekend to do." So that was the one we did on Monday evening. But they said, "Now look, we promise you, we're going to do your song, but you'll have to wait till the next album." So I said, "Oh, OK then." You know, I didn't mind that. OK. I don't know how long it was before the next album, which was Rubber Soul, start of Rubber Soul. Could have been 2 or 3 months. And in that time, things had changed in a rather weird way. I don't know. It may have had something to do with the Indian guru and drugs, I think, came into it, etc. But as soon as we started the first session of Rubber Soul, I knew things had changed. It was different. Anyway, cut a long story short, my song was never mentioned again, never. So something had definitely happened in that layoff between albums and was never ever mentioned again. But it was so happened that I'd only just started Rubber Soul when I was asked by management, would I like, because George Martin started his own Air Studios, would I like to become a producer? Well, of course, I jumped at it, loved it. Yes, I would. So I told Epstein and the boys that I can't see the end I can't go through with the end of Rubber Soul. To which they, of course, were very upset about that, and they wanted me to stay. Said, well, I won't go into the story, but they bought me a nice clock. I had a nice gold clock. They went to Bond Street and Asprey's, which is one of the biggest jewelers. And they inscribed it in the gold to me, which I've still got, of course, as a carriage clock, beautiful clock. I don't know if it was some kind of softener for me to stay on to the end of Rubber Soul or not, but of course, I mean, I was delighted. And it was difficult for me to stay on because by this time I wanted to start my own collection of artists, you know, looking for artists for my... I took over the Parlophone label from George. It was, you know, difficult, But I said, okay, well, I will see the end of Rubber Soul. But it was nowhere near as enjoyable as all the previous albums had been, and the previous 3 years had been. I could see a great change. They weren't getting along with one another, whereby we had done an album, we did one in one day, as I've said to you. They were always very quick, always quick, you know, to record. As I've said, we never did more than 3 takes on any one number. But now it was taking forever. And they were arguing, and not a nice, well, completely un-Beatles happiness, you know.
What were the arguments generally about?
Generally arguing about what song they what song they were going to do and how they were going to do it. I couldn't agree with the head arrangement. Perhaps the instrumentation to some degree, that kind of thing. You know, thrashing out the way it should be done. A lot of criticism between them, particularly John and Paul. And I could see they were definitely drifting apart. And just that general feeling that it was nowhere near the same. The happy family feeling had gone. I suppose in a way the knowledge that I was starting my own production career, but I mean, I was just still as enthusiastic to start with, to see the album through, but as it went on, it was nowhere near the same. And I was glad to finish with it. In Rubber Soul, my liking for the boys never faltered at all, but my enthusiasm for the type of songs that was so different, not so enjoyable for me personally, as had been from the previous 3 years of songs.
Were there ever people allowed into sessions, Norman?
Only by strict appointment. Even Sir Joseph Lockwood, who was chairman of EMI, he had to make appointments to come in. It was strictly the boys in the studio, George Martin and my button pusher. And that was all in the control room. Nobody else was allowed in, nobody. Cynthia, of course, she began to come in fairly regularly, got on awfully well with her, lovely girl. And at that time, Jane Asher, who was an actress, was knocking about with Paul, developing a situation there. Lovely girl. She sat next to me as well talking, so they were allowed in, of course.
How would you like to be remembered?
Well, that's a question I haven't thought about, to be honest with you. I suppose certainly for my period with the Beatles, some of my songs, I've written so many songs as a songwriter. Can't think of anything else really. I suppose my ambitions have been answered. I would have liked to have perhaps, which I promised myself I was going to take over Glenn Miller's role and to have my own successful big band in the same way as he did. But apart from that, no, just from what I've done, you know, that's how I'd like to be remembered, that's all.